You're watching 12 WKRC-TV, a new generation of news. 12 Newsmakers starts now.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. In 1995, Indiana voters approved riverboat gambling. Since then, 10 boats have been created. One group clusters in northern Indiana and is designed to lure people living in the greater Chicago area. 5 stretch out along the Ohio River, designed to tap the Cincinnati, Louisville, and Evansville markets. In 5 years, millions of players dropping quarters into slot machines and putting bets down on the roulette wheel have yielded $1.58 billion of tax revenue. Over $212 million of that has been funneled to local governments all over Indiana, not just the cities and counties in which the boats are docked. Those revenues have helped repair roads, repair bridges, extend sewer lines, and bring water systems into tightening federal standards. A study commissioned by the Casino Association of Indiana about 10 days ago found that Indiana casinos currently employ about 15,000 people, with an additional 9,000 jobs generated among companies supplying the gaming casinos. Currently, a proposal is pending in the Indiana legislature to allow floating casinos to drop the pretense of cruising and remain tied up. When Illinois permitted a similar conversion to dockside gambling in 1999, their admissions shot up 42%, while Indiana's admissions plateaued. That same study projected that if dockside conversion is made in Indiana by 2005, the casinos could generate an additional $118 million in gaming taxes and an additional $45 million in admissions taxes. They could also directly employ as many as 17,290 people and generate a total of 32,000 jobs, direct and indirect. This morning, we will devote the entire Newsmakers program to issues surrounding Indiana gambling. For this morning's program, I am joined by my colleague, Jeff Hirsh of 12 News. Jeff has focused in recent months on certain spin-off issues posed by the gambling in Indiana, and is in most situations, he knows a lot more than I do anyway. In addition, we are joined by Cheryl Devol-Glowinski, the Executive Director of the Casino Association of Indiana. Cheryl, welcome to Newsmakers, welcome to Cincinnati.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming from Indianapolis.
Thank you.
Jeff, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Always good to be back.
Okay.
Right.
Cheryl, we hear lots of things here in Cincinnati about how well Argosy is doing, how well the casinos farther downriver are doing, although last week there was the announcement that some casino dealers were laid off at one of the casinos. But generally the news is always things are getting better and better, and revenues, tax revenues. From a statewide perspective, and you have that statewide perspective, what's the situation with gaming in Indiana?
From a statewide perspective, the perspective is good. We are working to grow our markets. We are working to be a productive part of the economic development engine of the state of Indiana.
Now, and you say you want to grow. How do you want to grow? I know one of the proposals is in the Indiana legislature right now is a proposal to allow, as I hinted at before, to allow the riverboats to stay tied up. So, as I understand it, people could get on and off anytime they want. They wouldn't have to schedule a time for a cruise. Is that the best way to grow, or is growing mean more boats in more places?
Well, when you speak about growing, it does take on an outside of the state perspective, because our competitive markets are not only within the state, but they are outside the state. So House Bill 1729 that is currently pending in the state legislature would allow for dockside gaming, and that would allow our properties, particularly up on Lake Michigan, to respond to the competitive pressures that they have had put upon them since dockside was passed in Illinois, as you said earlier, in June of '99.
Is it a grow or else? Because what is the or else? Let's say dockside doesn't pass. Mm-hmm. Is it just going to start to shrink the revenues, the jobs? Is this, how mandatory is this for your industry?
I wish we had a crystal ball, but the indications from just the past year have shown up on Lake Michigan we have lost market share, I believe, to the tune of about 7.5% of market share has gone to the Illinois boats as opposed to the Indiana boats. We see that increasing, and we don't see that as a good thing. When you're in business, you want to be able to respond to competitive pressures, have the freedom to respond to those competitive pressures. This Dockside legislation would give us that freedom.
Kind of an irony down here. Argosy is the most successful in the country, apparently, but the Grand Victoria just down the road, a small number of layoffs, but at least that's a step backward. Is the market getting saturated? I mean, is Dockside, at some point in time, what comes after Dockside? Are there just too many boats too close to each other, particularly now with the economy starting to slide?
Well, I do have to give the Indiana General Assembly some credit, because when they passed Dockside Gaming back in the 1993 General Assembly, they limited the growth in Indiana to 11 licenses. 10 of those licenses have been issued to date. The Indiana Gaming Commission is the regulatory body over gaming, and they are very careful in reviewing the licensure of all of the properties before they're even approved. So the General Assembly did exercise some wisdom, I think, in limiting the licensure, the number of licenses that can be allotted in Indiana. And now we're at the point where we have these businesses, and how can we remain competitive in our regional gaming market?
Isn't there also a competition question, and you were bringing up Grand Victoria? If you went to Dockside, a lot of the people who are going to the casinos in our area are coming from Ohio. I don't know what the exact percentages are, but if they were coming down along Route 50 there along the river, if there was Dockside and you could always get on at Argosy, you didn't have to wait for a cruise, would more people stop in Lawrenceburg and therefore not make it to Grand Victoria, to Rising Sun or Belterra? Would that change the competition in our area?
Depends on the entertainment venue that the customer is looking for that evening. The character of those properties is very different between the three properties. So people who want a short drive, hop right across the state line, they might prefer to go to Argosy. It's a larger boat. Maybe they like the thrill of maybe a little more action, a few more people. If they want a different flavor of entertainment that evening, a smaller venue, they might go down to Hyatt Grand Vic or Belterra. It's like choosing which movie you want to go to.
There's a certain yeah but though to the Dockside issue, is there not? Because your association, the industry, supports it in principle, but the bill that came out of the Indiana House, which is now on its way to the Senate, has some provisions that I know at least some of the boats down here are quite opposed to. In terms of the level of taxation.
Correct. Well, I think most of the boats are opposed to the level of taxation in the current bill as it now stands. It's been described by our chairman, Joe Domenico, as an onerous tax.
When you say your chairman, you mean the Casino Association,
Casino
which is
Association.
an industry association. Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
Yes. Joe Domenico is the general manager of the Heresy Chicago boat, and he's also the chairman of our board. And he did comment at our press conference in January that the tax as it is now is very onerous. And preliminary numbers that we have done and have looked at property by property show that the effective tax rates for some of the properties go as high as 50%. That's off the top. That's before any of the bills get paid.
So the point is, as this bill works its way through the Indiana legislature, your industry is going to be lobbying to change the tax rates that are in that bill at the moment.
Yes, we will.
And if they don't change, will you oppose the bill?
It's a long session.
It's a long session. But we're out for this time. Hang on right there. You're going to stay with us. But stay tuned. After the break, we will return to take a look at some of the side effects of casino gambling on small towns in Indiana. Welcome back. As we discussed, gambling has brought a tax windfall to the state and local governments of Indiana since 1995. But along with those benefits, gambling has also brought some problems. Over the past several months, 12 News reporter Jeff Hirsh has been looking into some of those problems.
It's the road to riches. The road to Indiana's riverboat casinos.
Dice are out.
There's a pot of gold at the end of this winding blacktop rainbow. Gold for lucky winners and for even luckier communities taking in millions of tax dollars.
11, yo, 11. It's good in the field and come, 11, yo.
But out of these bright lights, the road to riches can turn dark.
Both ways, it's just a two-lane highway. Dark streets.
How much that drink tonight, sir?
The math is simple. Put a big floating bar in a peaceful little town, and the number of DUIs will skyrocket.
Well, what concerned me is you went left the center a couple times on the straight road. That's what kind of got me concerned.
So, from the Argosy in Lawrenceburg to the Grand Victoria in nearby Rising Sun, police officers like Ohio County Deputy Josh Doherty keep their eyes and their ears open.
It is a possible drunk driver.
Doherty grew up here in Ohio County. Now he keeps watch over it.
The boat's definitely, it's increased traffic quite a bit.
Most of that casino traffic is safe, but not all.
What I need you to do, I smell some alcohol. You told me you've been drinking a little bit tonight. We need you to step out and perform some field sobriety tests for me.
In Dearborn County, the Argosy opened in December 1996. That year, the county had 335 DUIs. In 1997, 481. And by 1999, 664. In Ohio County, the Grand Victoria opened in October 1996. That year, Ohio County saw 33 DUIs. In 1997, it nearly tripled to 96. And by 1999, 170.
Take 9 heel-to-toe steps.
A 500% increase in just 3 years.
That's tough now.
Now, one reason the number of DUI arrests skyrocketed here in Ohio County is the year after the casino boat opened, the Sheriff's Department added 3 deputies. And it's only logical. More cops, more stops. But if those cops had not been added, those drunks would still be out on the roads. They just would not be getting caught. What percentage of DUIs do you think are out there that you don't catch?
I've been told that you only catch about 15% of the DUIs that are driving on the highways.
It's very noticeable that you've been drinking tonight.
Drinking at a riverboat casino.
Went in there, I had $1,000 when I left there. I think I had a nickel.
But when you go to any gambling establishment, I mean, it's almost like a fantasy world.
Jim Beiting is an addiction counselor and a former compulsive gambler himself. Beiting says chances are if you're a problem gambler, you'll be a problem drinker too, a dangerous mix at a casino.
Gambling is very much a high. It's kind of like an amphetamine. It's like cocaine that it gets you high. And alcohol is a depressant, a central nervous system depressant. So one can argue that you're almost self-medicating.
The two always went together with me. If I'm drinking, I'm gambling. If I'm gambling, I'm drinking.
This man, also named Jim, is a recovering alcoholic and recovering compulsive gambler.
I can't gamble like everybody else. Once I get started, I can't stop. It's just like my drinking. Once I get started, I can't stop. I have no control over it.
Jim says he has controlled it now through Alcoholics Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous, but not until he wrecked his car in a drunken stupor.
How often do you think you drove drunk after gambling?
Oh, many times, many times.
Were you ever aware when you were drinking, driving after gambling that, I am driving drunk, I could kill somebody or myself, or are you kind of oblivious to it?
Only the day after, when I sobered up. I had many close calls that I shiver to even think about.
But you kept doing it?
Yes.
The casinos are well aware and train their employees to spot problem gamblers and problem drinkers.
It's extremely difficult to cut them off. However, we would much rather do that, and in the morning they thank us. They're only upset for a little while. It also helps that we have a hotel right here, because then we usually comp them a hotel room, or make sure they have someone to come get them.
The Sheriff's Department says the casinos do a good job, but simply cannot catch everybody before they head out on the road.
That's what you're testing, sir. 167.
Is that bad or good?
Okay, that's 1.5 times the legal limit in the state of Indiana.
Just a real volatile mix when you put gambling and alcohol together. It's just a real different situation.
Even an addiction counselor like Jim Beiting and a recovering alcoholic and problem gambler like Jim, who we talked to, agree the casino boats help the local economy. And they also agree the vast majority of people who come here gamble responsibly, drink responsibly, and drive responsibly.
You had anything to drink tonight?
But addiction counselor Jim Beiting says more safety measures are needed, from simple things like signs saying don't drink and drive to random DUI checkpoints.
I think it would send a clear message that, you know, we're not going to tolerate someone coming to the casino, drinking too much, and driving home.
He didn't blow anything on the breathalyzer, but I've had contact with the same guys, always down the boat, and for some reason just never wants to stop.
So far, Ohio County has been lucky. No DUI fatalities. But with more DUIs out there, tragedy in casino land is probably something you can bet on.
You have intoxicated drivers driving up and down that road. One of these days, it's almost inevitable that you're going to have a bad head-on accident.
Ain't no doubt about it. You know, I was drinking on the boat.
Yeah. Well, that's not legal to drink on the boat. It's legal when you drink and drive.
That's very true.
Jeff Hirsh, 12 News.
For the second part of the program this morning, besides Jeff Hirsh and Cheryl Devol-Glowinski, we are joined by Jim Beiting, who you met in the package that Jeff just did, who is an addiction counselor and works for the YWCA in downtown Cincinnati. Jim, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Since the opening of the casinos in southeast Indiana, from your perspective as a addiction counselor, how have things changed? How many cases do you see? What's happened with the work that you do?
Well, I think we're seeing an increase in the number of compulsive gamblers. The percentage of that increase, it's hard to pinpoint. There's an increase in the number of individuals going to Gamblers Anonymous. If you talk to Gamblers Anonymous members, they'll say their meetings are fuller. And we're seeing an increase in compulsive gamblers where the gambling that they like to do is on the riverboat. Although if you talk to those people a little bit at length, what you'll find is that they were gambling before the riverboats came as well. Now maybe the gambling increased when the riverboats came or not, but usually there was a problem there before, and maybe the boats may have exacerbated that problem a little bit, but there is an increase in the number of compulsive gamblers.
Were they gambling illegally?
Well, I think a lot of the gambling in greater Cincinnati is either with the lottery or the racetracks, with 2 racetracks in town, and the Ohio Lottery very popular. We have plenty of gambling to keep people busy.
So even without the boats, there are outlets, and
Absolutely.
people will gamble if they have the addiction.
Absolutely.
Of course, if you buy a lottery ticket, you're not going to go to a alcohol-serving establishment, buy 5 lottery tickets, have 7 beers, and drive home. Maybe you are, but obviously it's not an entertainment activity to buy a lottery ticket, whereas the casinos are a huge entertainment activity. Right. So is that mixture, admittedly a small percentage of people, but still a lot more than used to be, to the casino industry, do you feel that you're doing enough to spot DUIs or drunks and try to stop them from going out?
We do have training programs for all of our employees. New employees as well as any employee that will come in contact with customers and possibly be served alcohol. However, we can always work in partnership with business and industry, people in the treatment field and in the recovery field, to learn how to do more and learn how to do it even better. You can always make something better.
What about the question of, I mean, there's the DUI and sort of spotting people who are drinking too much. What about the question, though, of seeing someone who comes every day or so frequently that you worry they have a gambling addiction? Is that something the casinos actually will look for?
Yes, they do. And in fact, they do, you know, we have the employees are there every day, regular employees, and they are trained to spot people who are frequent customers, and if they see some behavior that might show that these people are betting above their limits, then that might trip some sort of a mechanism that they've been trained to recognize to point that person out to a management official, a pit boss, whatever, to just monitor them and make sure that, and maybe go up and talk with them and introduce themselves to them. There's a lot of relationship building that goes on with regular customers to make sure that it's really a healthy situation.
Jim, you obviously, you know gambling addiction firsthand because you had one a number of years ago. Is it easy to hide something like that? Yes, the casinos do try to spot people, but A, you can't spot everybody, and B, I think from a business perspective, it's got to be tough to come up to somebody who is there doing what you want them to do.
Right.
Spend lots of money and say, hey, back off. So how hard is it from a gambler's perspective, or how easy is it from a gambler's perspective just to slide under the radar?
Well, gambling is known as a hidden addiction. There's no drug test to take to see if you've been gambling, and it's difficult to spot a problem gambler or a compulsive gambler. And with if you mix alcohol in the mix, you know, and you see someone's behaving erratically, is that because they're gambling too much, they've lost too much money, or is it because they've had too much to drink? And you know, these two addictions really play off of each other. But it is difficult when someone is kind of doing what you want them to do, to kind of tap them on the shoulder and say, it looks like you're out of control. And there's some, you know, that you need to be careful with that, because what may be too much money to some is not too much to others. And it's hard to spot a problem gambler, even in the casino. But I think the more training, the more sensitivity that the casino employees have to spot those folks, I think the better for everybody.
Cheryl, my image of, and this is an image sort of Las Vegas casinos, where I've never been, but this is my image of them, is that in order to encourage the gambling part, they are always either providing drinks, either free or almost free, and using the alcohol as a way of keeping things going. Is that the case in Indiana casinos?
That's a real misconception about Indiana casinos. All of our properties charge for their drinks.
Same price all the time?
They charge market price. So depending on what boat you're on, that may be different. But they charge for their drinks.
We have two things that, kind of going back to where we started here, we have two things that may be coming in the near future. One is Dockside, and two is a lower DUI threshold of 0.08. If you add those two things together, are we just going to see, is it going to be A, easier for people to stay there and bet more, and B, easier to get a DUI just because it takes less to get a DUI, and what is that going to mean? Could it mean? I
would say yes on both. I'm not sure about the percentage of increase that we're going to see, but I think it's just common sense that we're going to see an increase in DUIs or any alcohol-related crime when you mix those two. And when you've had maybe one or too many drinks, your inhibitions go down. That's what alcohol does. It affects your inhibitions. It lowers your inhibitions. And you're going to gamble more than you may have thought you would when you went. That's the downside of mixing alcohol and gambling. And they play off each other that way. And if you win a little bit more money than you thought you were going to, or you hit a lucky streak there, you may drink a little bit more. So they kind of play off of each other. The drinking may come first, or the gambling may come first. So it's an interesting mix.
If the Dockside does come, and maybe it will in some form, do you feel that the industry, A, Jim, do you feel that it should, and Cheryl, B, do you feel that you will make additional steps to try to deal with the potential problems, because you will have a greater opportunity for people to come and A, have a good, clean fun, go home, be happy, but B, have these negative impacts?
Yes.
Any specific thoughts as to what could be done, either of you?
Well, we can work in partnership with the people in the treatment and the recovery fields. And this is a wonderful opportunity meeting Jim today, because we're already planning to talk after the show about things that we can work together on, jointly on. It's a wonderful opportunity to provide assistance.
We're just about out of time, amazingly. Jim, real quick, if people need to get in touch with you, do you have a telephone number, or what's the right way?
If they want to get in touch with Gamblers Anonymous, the hotline number, there's always someone there 24 hours a day. They can call that number. It's in the phone book. It's readily available.
Under Gamblers Anonymous? Under
Gamblers Anonymous. If they want to get in touch with me, they can call my office number. It's 324-9931.
Thank you both for being here, and thank you for coming down from Indianapolis, and we will follow this. Jeff, congratulations. Very good job.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for being
here.
Thank you. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week when we will explore the serious social implications of bowling alone. I'm not kidding. Have a good week.
595.